heard by now, the Apple Mac Mini is, well, even more mini, if that's even possible. We also got a number of surprises with this new machine. Let's go ahead and dive in. It's been 4 years since Apple introduced the Mac Mini with the new Silicon M chips. In those 4 years, Apple only updated the Mini 2 times, the M1 and the M2. Now, I've talked about ad nauseum about my feelings with Apple updating machines for the sake of just using what's new. Kind of like the MacBook Pros. It's frustrating picking up a new high-dollar machine only to have Apple basically say 1 year later, what you have, it's outdated. Even though it's not, but that FOMO really gets us all.
Shut up and take my money!
Especially since the updates are now happening so often, who knows if the next update will be that big game-changing one or not. I mean, you can wait.
And you wait and wait and wait.
And wait and wait for that to happen, and then when it doesn't happen and you finally decide to pull the trigger because you need to upgrade, inevitably it's gonna have the big update and you'll be 1 year off. Are you as mental about this as I am? Go ahead and leave a comment down below and let me know. I also know the other side of that argument, and it's people might be on a different purchase cycle, and in order to capture that market, Apple needs to update as soon as possible.
Oh.
To which I say, absolute BS.
Forget it.
Stop giving them an out, please. They're big enough. Now, of course, I'm happy to say that that can't be said for the Mac Mini, at least this time. Now, there's been times in the past where the Mac Mini was getting as many as 2 to 3 updates a year, and then there were years that we weren't sure if the Mac Mini was a dead product. After 2014, we waited 4 years for something new. And if you tried to keep updated on all the rumors during that time, it would have drove you absolutely nuts. For 2024, Apple did make some substantial updates to this Mac Mini. As I mentioned at the start of this video, Apple made the Mac Mini even smaller. Did we ask for it? Nope, but here it is. Before looking at the I/O for this year's 2024 Mac Mini, we need to go ahead and grab the previous generation Mac Mini. On the base M2 machine, it has 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports, 2 USB-A ports, 1 HDMI, an Ethernet, and of course the headphone jack. Now the M2 Pro had all those same ports, but did come with an additional 2 Thunderbolt ports. Now the new M4 Mac Minis have even more ports.
You sure about that?
I'm sorry. Let me go ahead and rephrase that. They have more USB-C ports. Yes, the base machine now has 3 Thunderbolt 4 ports, the HDMI, a gigabit Ethernet, and the audio jack, as well as 2 USB-C ports on the front. Now on the M4 Pro machine, you get all those same ports, but the 3 Thunderbolt ports on the back are now Thunderbolt 5. Are you excited about seeing what speeds the Thunderbolt 5 might bring? Or are you just, meh? Go ahead and leave me a comment down below and let me know. At first glance, this seems like a great update to a machine that's been pretty much the same for God knows how many years. But we do lose those 2 USB-A ports. Now, I can imagine some people not liking this change, but it's been happening for over a while now, so I don't know. For me, I don't like looking for multiple cords. One cord is just fine, and in that way, I can move on. When we talk just totality, the base machine actually picked up a port for a total of 5, and because we lost the USB-A ports, the M4 Pro actually lost a port, going from 6 to 5, which I'm guessing is just a limit on what the system chip can actually do.
That's idiotic!
Now, another good or bad thing that Apple did was they moved the headphone jack from the back to the front of the machine. Now, for me, this is no good because I have mine hooked up to external speakers, and I really don't want to have a cord that's permanently attached to the front of my machine. Now, also as someone who shoots video, I'm still bummed Apple did not bring back the SD card slot.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
When it comes to the internal specs on the Mac Mini, I do need to remind people that this machine is actually recommended as a great starter machine. So the price tag of $599 is always described as a great value for Mac. It's impressive that Apple has managed to keep this machine in the same price range for almost 20 years. I mean, that's crazy. However, is the price still a good value with the improvements made across the board? Let's go ahead and compare this to the base $1,600 M4 MacBook Pro to see what it really means. They both have the same 10-core CPU and GPU. Both the laptop and the Mac Mini start with 16 gigs of RAM and go up from there. I'm certainly happy that the Mac Mini no longer starts at 8 gigs of memory. Now, I feel like the storage is now the thing that's left behind. The MacBook Pro starts at 512 gigs of storage, while the Mac Mini still starts at 256. I also don't think doubling the storage on the Mac Mini for $200 is really worth the money. You could get a crucial 1TB M2 SSD of storage for $90 and the external SSD enclosure for $75. Now, I currently use 2 terabytes of storage with that external closure for editing on my MacBook Pro and have zero issues with the setup. Yes, the internal storage is faster on paper, but in real world use, it's really not that noticeable in my opinion. By the way, Apple charges $400 more for 1 terabyte of storage and $800 for 2 terabytes of storage. I 100% would never recommend paying that much for internal storage. Oh, on a side note, the 700 teardowns of the Mac Mini that I saw on YouTube do show a removable storage board. What that means for future upgrades via third party does remain to be seen. I'm sure Apple will do it at a premium cost, and hopefully someone will come along with something a little bit less expensive, because it's not all that terrible taking it apart to upgrade this. Now, this next part could be a little bit touch and go because it all depends on your current situation. Obviously, the MacBook Pro has a 14-inch display, a keyboard, and a trackpad, along with an SD card reader. Even if you need to buy your own peripherals and monitor, you could get a top-of-the-line LG mouse and keyboard for $99 and an LG 4K 27-inch ultrafine monitor for $179 right now. For $877, you're basically set up. So, is this configuration still worth the money? I would have to say that yes, it is, and then some. I think what really helps is the drop in cost of the extra items that you need. Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. If the keyboard, the mouse, and the monitor and other things can do it cheaper, couldn't Apple do the same thing? Some would say that Apple is putting in the latest chips in these machines. Even though they're the base power configurations, it still holds. Couldn't Apple have offered the M3 and M3 Pro in the configuration this year that could have made it even less money? I could go on and on for hours. Let's get back to the main topic. Now, of course, I do need to say personally, I think if you want to spend a little bit of money, upgrading the memory will help for more programs that demand power, and that's just $200, bringing you to a total of $1,077. Now, of course, there are many people who have the opinion that upgrading any internals on the Mac Mini is just a giant waste of money. Now, I definitely used to feel like that way as well, but when comparing it to the new MacBook Pro, I feel like there's some wiggle room with this new iteration of the Mac Mini. If you're just breaking in or even semi-serious about using Macs for production purposes, but not as serious as to want to spend $1,600 for a laptop, this, I think, is a great option. Now, this entire video, I've been talking about the value of the M4 chip, but what about the M4 Pro chip? Well, again, most say that it's not worth it, and to that, I say I'm not really 100% sure anymore. I have an M1 Pro MacBook Pro that I bought used, and it's still a beast for editing. And this M4 Pro configuration starts with 24 gigs of RAM and can be configured with 48 or 64 gigs of RAM, $400 and $600 respectively.
This is kind of stupid.
Now, with this M4 Pro configuration, we are starting to get some muddy waters here because, yes, you get a better chip and memory, but if you need to buy all the peripherals that I mentioned, you're now spending $130 more compared to what you could get with the 14-inch MacBook Pro. The future mic here, clearly that math is not mathing. It's only $80, but albeit the same, it's more money. But I have one more question to pose that's in the video, so back to the video. If we want to compare apples to apples, no pun intended, an M4 Pro MacBook Pro base starts at $2,000 with the same specs as the M4 Pro Mac Mini. Yeah, it's a vicious cycle that just keeps going around, but can end up costing you more money than you really need to spend. Now, I could throw in there using a previous generation model, but I'll stop there because we could probably do a whole nother video on that. Now, at some point, it's pushing these machines to their limits is where I think you're going to see the difference. When that is, I really have no idea. You may never reach it. I definitely would like to try that out, and I was thinking of picking up an M4 Pro Mac Mini to see how the performance is compared to the M4. If you want to see that video, go ahead and give this video a thumbs up or comment down below what you want to see. After going through all this, I honestly don't know if I help people with making an informed decision on what to buy, or I just brought up more questions. Now, what I don't agree with Apple is the fact that they allow these machines to be maxed out with upgrades totaling $4,700. This isn't anything new, but I think at some point adding this is just really a money grab. And unfortunately, there are people out there that aren't going to realize what they're doing, and they think, well, the more the better, and they end up overspending on something that they're never going to use. I don't like to mince words, and yes, I can be very critical of Apple at times. However, if you want to go ahead and check out this video I did right here, it's something that Apple actually did that's good. Yes, I'm not lying. Of course, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell so you won't miss my next video when I post it. See ya.